Hello, and welcome to The Gardens, located in sunny... The Gardens is one of the largest combined zoological habitat and theme parks in the world. With over 72 thrilling attractions and nearly 11,000 animals in our care, we know that every member of your family will find something incredible each time you visit. But that's just the start of your adventure. To really see what the park has to offer, I'll turn you over to our top 2 guides. Take it away, boys!
Welcome to Thoughtspeak, a podcast dedicated to the weekly discussion of K. Applegate's 1996 book series, Animorphs. My name is Coleman.
And my name is Mitchell.
And we've got a hell of a show for you tonight, folks.
Do we really?
No.
Is that a promise you're willing to make right here?
Terrible episode.
I don't know. It probably won't stand up against the now famous Andalite Chronicles episode.
You know, you joke, but wow, a lot of people listen to the Andalite Chronicles episode so far. I think people were waiting on it specifically.
It's doing well. It's like that really popular seasonal kind of cereal that only comes around every so often. You know? Yeah. It's just flying off shelves.
I just feel bad for the other episodes that came before it, you know. They did well. People listened to them, but they must be looking pretty disappointedly over at Andalite Chronicles numbers.
Yeah, I don't know. People are going to listen to whatever book interested them the most, I think. Or there's the hardcore, the diehard fans that are following us week to week, you know. It's like a journey. We're all on a journey together.
Yeah, they're definitely sticking around, which is good because I think we're in that 8-episode arc of just excellent books, or at least really important mythology books, somewhat.
Yeah, they're definitely coming up with a little bit more clever ways to throw these children into, danger.
Mortal peril. Specifically, the next few books, they really have a hard time staying alive, for the most part. I mean, they all make it because, they're the Animorphs, and they know what they're doing, but...
no, I'm pretty sure they all bite the dust in somewhere around book 31 or 2, and then the rest of the books are all just the Yeerk's invasion without anybody there to stop them.
Yeah, and if there was some other series, or if the K. Applegate continued this series, I think it works out for these books, the fact that they all survived, because they became like these legends of the war against the Yeerks. They're these legendary soldiers. That's kind of where they're at the end of the series. But if they did another series, I think if you're really going to try to pull off, a war and that war scenario, you have to have people lost along the way, like badly lost and like quick, like out of nowhere. I think that's something this series is lacking quite a bit.
Well, this series is afraid to still kill humans at this point, as demonstrated clearly in this book.
No, not necessarily. They kill tons of humans. What are you talking about? Human controllers die left and right.
I mean, when it comes down to it, and it's the kids and some human controllers, they're not going to just go battlemorph and mess them up. They're still in this mindset where they're like, we got to run from humans.
And that's good, because they lose that in not even that much longer of a time period within the series. So,
well, I can't wait.
But that's good. I like that we have that transition of, at the beginning of the series, they're naive. We even have the Andalite Chronicles pushing it down our throats that war is about killing people. And
there hasn't been enough yet.
Elfangor's like, no, I'm going to win this with clean hands. And that's not war. War is about, hey, I've got so many people on this side. You've got so many people on that side. How can I reduce the number on your side? That's war.
Well put. You know what? I was thinking about this when I was reading this book, actually, The Escape. They could really do a proper Animorphs game if they did it like MGS, Metal Gear Solid. If it was like Metal Gear Solid, where, you're on stealth missions, but you can morph animals, that would be so awesome.
That would be really good. Yeah, I agree with that completely.
And focus on the story.
I mean, even Metal Gear Solid started introducing, really well-done hand-to-hand combat and stuff, so you get a Battlemorphs and everything. Hideo Kojima, make an Animorphs game.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Let's get him on it.
Except it'd be way weird.
Get David Hayter involved.
He'd play Jake.
Well, this book perfectly demonstrated how the Animorphs franchise, the video games specifically, could have benefited from maybe incorporating this human stealth kind of mission aspect into the gameplay instead of the side-scrolling BS that we ended up getting, or the crazy Pokemon ripoff.
I think most publishers would be more interested in doing some kind of action-adventure game, and if you absolutely had to do something like that, you could do a pretty sweet, like, God of War style Animorphs game, where you're morphing into different animals and just taking on hordes of people.
No, I don't see, I don't think it should go the beat-em-up route.
I wouldn't want that. I'm saying that's what they would do.
Clearly there's some battles that they gotta go through, but it's more about, carrying out these kind of stealthy missions.
Realistically, it would be a good game type to turn this into, and that could actually be strategy. Done. Real-time strategy would be amazing. You send in hordes of auxiliary Animorphs to their deaths. But no, an actual game type you could do is like the Telltale games, like the Walking Dead ones, where it's almost like the old school point-and-click adventures, but they're a little more action-based, but they're all about making decisions and people remembering what you've done and it changing the story as you go. Yeah,
I haven't played any of those myself, and I hear that they're quite popular and the stories are really well.
Season 1 of The Walking Dead, the Telltale game, is the first one I actually really got into. Like, they had the Jurassic Park one, they had Back to the Future and stuff, but the Walking Dead one specifically, it was just an amazing story, and it was really fun to play. It felt like a normal video game, even though a lot of it was just like walking around talking to people, or, every once in a while there'd be a little action scene where you'd fight off some zombies. But it was the story and your actions and what the big impacts were because of that was so much fun. You'd kill somebody in front of the little girl and it'd say Clementine would remember that.
Well, yeah, that would be a pretty cool format, I guess, for the Animorphs franchise. I like a little bit more action in my game.
You'd add action to it like it did, but it'd be great because you'd have like you and Marco, or
you could choose.
Yeah, you could choose morphs, and that would affect like how the story goes. Maybe you choose the wrong one, the wrong stealth morph.
I choose Dolphin for every mission. How do we get to the gardens? Dolphin morph. I'll meet you guys there in 2 hours.
You would play like Jake or something and say you got to make a decision on, okay, Marco and Cassie, you're going to go behind that dumpster. Rachel and Tobias, you're going to go into the mall. And based on your actions, maybe everybody turns into Nothlets and are trapped in morph. It's like, you don't know.
Get on this game, Telltale.
Yeah. Stop making that low-profile Game of Thrones game. And switch over to this.
Nobody wants that.
So what else we got to talk about?
I just want to give a shout out to Blog with a Dog.
Oh, you're talking about the guy on Reddit. Oh, he's been posting a lot on Reddit alongside us. Basically, the guy who is going through each episode of the Animorphs TV show and reviewing them blog style with a humorous twist.
Yeah, it's been real entertaining to me.
But I read the first 3, and they were really, really funny. So he maybe throws in a few too many images. It's like cracked style blog.
No, I appreciate that, and I like that style too. I like that format.
Sure. But he is really funny. So I was holding off on mentioning him on our podcast because he hasn't mentioned us at all. And I know he's seen us.
Why would he?
Because he's posting every week to Reddit just like we are. But we've been doing that for a while.
It's not a competition.
It is a competition. I feel like we've caused a lot of discussion in the Animorphs community, and I'm not ego-driven. I don't think we're doing anything crazy, but...
Okay, Blog with a Dog. I demand you give us a shout-out in your next blog posting.
No, I don't need a shout-out.
It's demanded.
I'm okay with our listeners who may not have seen it, if they check him out, because he is extremely funny. So.
Aw, isn't that nice?
Yeah, just trying to do a nice thing. trying to support the Animorphs community. Get it roaring.
That is really about all I had to get us warmed up. I think I'm ready, and I think you're ready to dive deep into our discussion tonight.
Are you ever actually ready to discuss Animorphs number 15, The Escape? I feel like my entire life's been building up to this.
Yeah. We could do it when we're supposed to, like right now.
Okay. If you're that comfortable, I think I'm okay with trying it out.
I am ready, my good man.
All right.
Without further ado, let us adjourn.
Let's get into it.
This section of the park houses one of the most extensive research libraries devoted to animal biology on the West Coast. Your guides will provide a thorough summary of any book that might catch your eye. Careful though, once you get them started, they'll never want to stop.
All right, like we said, we are discussing Animorphs number 15, The Escape, written by K. Applegate.
What? Is it really?
Distributed by Scholastic.
The Yerks are out there, man.
That's what I say. The Yerks are out there because we haven't had 14 books to tell us that so far. So now we know officially.
They got to give you a little snippet to bring the new readers in and bring them up to speed.
This is an interesting cover because
this cover freaks me the hell out.
Well, it's very okay. Marco's flying out of the sky somehow. It's pretty crazy. The angle of his descent looks like he was like torpedoing out of a plane.
You don't remember that part of the book?
Anyway, but you can tell that this book they were really focusing on like colors first. We want a yellow spine, like a teal Animorphs background for the text, and okay, the sky, a blue sky wouldn't work well. Let's go with a purple sky. Purple sky behind the ocean.
Throw it all off.
But it does look pretty cool, though. It's a pretty good looking book cover compared to some of them.
It's not bad, and you know what? I bet you wouldn't get as made fun of with this as you would with the Unknown, last week's Unknown.
No, who doesn't like hammerhead sharks? Hammerhead sharks are sweet.
Right,
and
if you check the inside cover, you'll see a pivotal moment from this book when Marco morphed a shark and
swam by a school of fish. Yeah.
Yep.
And I know this wasn't intentional because there's no way that they could get something right like this. But the fact that Marco is actually wearing something that could be considered one of his morphing outfits, except less flamboyant, that's nice for once.
Yeah, I suppose they're getting it down a
somewhat
little.
Closer.
Somebody sent out an inner office memo that they needed to step up their artwork.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he's only in a morphing outfit like that because he's going into the water. Like they were probably going for not swimsuit, but like a wetsuit. So
the two phases where he's like halfway morphed just are creepy, really.
Yeah, it's hard to pull off that hammerhead stretch face look.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and read the back of the book
so
that everybody can know what this book is about.
I dare you.
Almost nothing could be as bad as finding out your mother is Visor 1, the most powerful of all Visors, the leader of the Yerk invasion of Earth. But it happened to Marco. And even though he's been handling it pretty well, he knew there'd come a time when he'd have to face her again, knowing that the Yerk in her brain had taken his mother away. So when Marco, the other Animorphs, and Axe discover that Visor 1 is overseeing a secret underwater project, they know they have to check it out. But Marco's not sure if this is a battle he'll be able to fight.
Spoilers, it's a battle he's willing to fight.
Yeah, this is the book where Visor 1 comes back. Dun dun dun.
That's a big deal, and you can joke all you want, but ever since The Predator, you can tell that this is one of the this is a Tom-sized mythology plot point.
Some would argue that this is like the main focus of the series. I feel more in tune with this plot line than I do with the Jake and Tom one.
That's weird. I mean, Jake and Tom, that's the classic. That's book one set up. That's his biggest problem. The leader of the Animorphs, his brother is, and they mention it constantly.
A whole heck of a lot of Tom lately.
Yeah, but they mention it in every single book. Almost.
I know they have to keep it in people's minds somehow. Previously,
if you're talking main big plot points, then yeah, it's Jake and Tom, it's Marco and his mother, and are the Andalites coming back? Those are the big ones. I mean, there's plenty more, but
yeah, I guess I'd agree with you on that one. But this is definitely an important book, quote unquote.
I say take off those quote unquotes. This is totally an important book.
Never.
Any book that starts with Eric, is a oh shit book.
Right. Yeah. About the start of the book, I thought we moved past the Animorphs using their powers for stupid, totally unnecessary, selfish reasons, like imitating the parrots in a Rainforest Cafe type knockoff.
To be fair,
restaurant.
This was such a crappy environment for these parrots that even Jake was on board with coming on this stupid mission.
Yeah, it makes me wonder about the truth. I don't know if the actual Rainforest Cafe...
They don't. They have
is
animatronic parrots.
Terrible like this. Yeah, that's what I thought. But I think they might have had real birds, probably even back in the 90s when this book was written.
I don't think they did, because we used to go to one whenever we'd go down to Florida. Just randomly would go to because our cousins liked it so much. And I remember thinking when this book came out, like right when it came out, I remember thinking like, wait, I've been to tons of rainforest cafes. I've never seen a live parrot. So I think this is like the, they've done this before. Just like how the Crazy Eddie and his, red-tailed hawk he kept in a bird cage to sell cars. It's putting an animal in danger for the sake of them saving it, not based on real life events.
No, I get you here. And you know what? It's actually pretty funny because we've got both Tobias and Axe, inhuman morphs, just sitting in there, like, observing their friends, totally grossing out all the customers by saying, "Enjoy rat feces with every meal," and all kinds of things to gross out all the people who are eating there. And it's, kind of a humorous scene.
Yeah, I think they could have gone a little further with it because they said all these things that I think if you were standing in line at a rainforest cafe, people would just find it was kind of funny that the birds were saying this thing. They wouldn't leave line. If they were saying offensive things.
Well, they were saying some pretty articulate sentences.
Yeah, but still, I don't know if people would react that way. They should have had them saying something like really offensive that could get the restaurant like sued or something.
That could get this podcast shut down.
Yeah, we're not going to mention it here. We keep a clean slate on Thoughtspeak. I think it's fair to say that we run a PG-13 rating. Every once in a while, maybe someone will drop an F-bomb, but it's pretty rare.
We run like an 80s PG-13. The good PG-13. But as you mentioned, yes, after this whole snafu at the restaurant here, where they're imitating parrots, they do run into Eric. Eric the Chi. I've been waiting for him to make a comeback.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been too long since book 10.
Yeah. He's basically their Charlie. Reference to Charlie's Angels. He's the guy who gives no, not your dog.
Well, I mean that.
He's like the Charlie from Charlie's Angels. He gives the angels their mission.
Yeah, well, it's kind of cool when they do run into Eric because he's like, "Hey, we gotta talk," and his whole hologram includes everybody to make him look like a couple of chatting security guards in the mall.
Yeah, I know he's all nonviolence, but being able to make them invisible and or create whatever image he wants around something, that could come useful.
That's a huge superpower that they totally underutilize.
Yeah, later they use him in a cave that no one can see anyway, and things like that. Like, he's always not utilized well.
Yeah, he's definitely been given some superpowers that are kind of broken. Anyway, he appears and gives them a mission because he's, of course, heard about the latest developments of the Yeerks. And they've got a new scheme apparently taking place on some island called Royan Island. And there is, of note, there's a new species of possible controllers there called Lyrans. Lyrans!
Yep, and the thing about these Lyrans, which Axe is about to tell us, they are psychic. They're like these tentacle frog things, and if you get within a certain distance of them, which I thought was interesting, it seems like it's a pretty close distance, except for maybe some of the more powerful or leader ones or whatever.
They never specify a distance, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Axe always talks about how you wouldn't want to go near one. So I assume it's like a 6-foot radius or something like that. Then they can see the future.
Yeah, it's like Bardock, father of Goku.
Exactly. Wait, what? I don't remember him being able to do that.
That was the whole point of that movie.
Really?
Next time on Thoughtspeak, our review of Dragon Ball Z movie special.
Oh, the Tree of Might?
Bardock, father of Goku.
Oh my gosh. Why don't we have a Dragon Ball podcast? We could totally pull that off.
Coming next fall from the makers of Thoughtspeak. So before we get our Lyran explanation, by the way, this is when, Eric brings up the very critical point that this mission is being overseen by Visor 1. And he's all reluctant to reveal that information to Jake. But, of course, we get the Jake's in, man. He's cool.
Anything you can say in front of me, you can say in front of Jake.
Jake's my homie. Yeah. And Marco kind of flips out a little bit here because Eric's, kind of questioning him as to whether or not he can do what needs to be done on this mission.
Which is interesting. It's always interesting when you have situations like this, Eric is one of the kids, but he's also a centuries old robot who's lived in 1,000
he's an
adult
ancient
lifetimes.
He's an ancient godlike machine.
So I always like them having conversations with him, because even when he sounds normal, you can at least imagine that there's a lot more going on and a lot more wisdom coming out than, him asking about Marco so personally and objectively or whatever, about whether he'll be able to handle it. It's a little insightful from the machine robot dog beast.
If I were the Animorphs, I would be terrified anytime Eric approached. I would just be, in the back of my mind, I'd be thinking, did he go find that effing disc and redo his programming? Is he coming here to tear me apart?
Well, no, I'd just be terrified because they hear about plenty of missions through their own channels. Animorphs are getting pretty good about finding out about things that the Yeerks are up to. But
the authors are getting pretty good at writing in coincidences.
Yes, they're pretty good. They've always been amazing at that. But anytime Eric shows up, that means you're getting like deep, dark, secret, big things going down missions. So I'd be terrified just to see him, because he's probably going to tell me that we need to shoot the president to save the Earth.
Yeah, if this Animorphs were a video game series, Eric would be the one who'd always give you like the really tough boss fight missions.
Oh yeah, definitely. You need to go into the Yeerk pool and run around naked for 10 minutes. It's the only way to save the Earth.
Do this all in Gorilla Morph.
But it's on the Lyran home planet.
Achievement unlocked. Used horse morph.
Used mosquito morph in fire.
Yeah, so this is obviously a huge problem, because Lyrans are psychic, and psychic controllers is a no-go in this kind of secretive war.
On top of that, they're an amphibious race, and the planet that they come from is completely water-based. So
yeah, but what would they do with them? They're not going to realistically use them to any advantage on Earth.
Oh my gosh, Lyrans with morphing power would be unstoppable.
Maybe.
Morph-capable Lyrans.
We want that book.
Yep.
During this conversation where Axe is telling them all about the Lyrans and how they're, these amphibious, aquatic, psychic aliens that come from this far-off world, they're trying to figure out, what Yeerks would want with them, which, it's not that hard to figure out.
Yeah, they go straight for the psychic ability.
Yeah.
Which seems like a pretty big advantage, especially when, you gotta find morph-capable people who might attack you at any point. So, definitely a danger to the Animorphs themselves.
Yeah, and this is the point where they're obviously discussing the mission a little bit, and they decide they need to fly out to Royan Island and, check the place out. And particularly the waters around Royan Island is where they need to focus their search. So they decide they need, obviously, to swim. And the only member of the team thus far that doesn't have a water morph, particularly a dolphin morph, is Tobias.
He's got a raccoon morph. Can't he just, ride on one of their backs?
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love that. I like that they don't even try to consider getting Axe a dolphin morph.
Yeah, he's got a sweet-ass shark morph. He doesn't need one.
Well,
plus, it's much harder. It's much harder to get an Andalite, into a...
They could do it the exact same
facility.
way they did it in the book 4. They had no problems flying into the gardens at night and climbing right on in the tank.
When Cassie wants to play with them, but, they got their morph
they can't sneak an Andalite in.
They got their morphs by going there during the day and petting the dolphins, remember? While the trainer was right there?
Yeah, but they very easily could have, just like Cassie did there.
Eileen is the name of the trainer, by the way, from book 4.
Way to go.
Suck it, true fan.
You earned 10 Anna trivia points.
Anyway, so Tobias, he's a little hesitant, but he kind of thinks about maybe flying to Royan Island and just morphing there, but it's 30 miles. So
yeah, he wants to pull out immediately. He's like, I'll go back to Skycam.
Yeah, he's still kind of, he's antsy about using his morphine. He wants to use morphine to fight because he doesn't want to look like he's scared, but...
No, but now he's totally part of the team again, and he's been so used to sitting out while everybody else does the really disgusting morphs. He missed out on ant, he missed
cockroach,
out on dolphin, he missed out on just all the good stuff and the really, really bad stuff. And so now we get to see more of Tobias being like they were towards the beginning, where he's like, oh, I don't know about this.
He's like a new Animorph that doesn't try to kill them all. So
yeah, kind of. I mean,
nice.
they need to outfit him with a fly, roach morph.
He needs an actual battle morph. I'm sick of seeing Tobias come in and like slash out a Hork-Bajeer's eyes in the middle of the battle.
Oh yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, give him.
I don't think they ever do.
Hork-Bajir morph.
I know, and he'd be odd, and he does morph it later on in the series. Him and Rachel go Hork-Bajeer every once in a while.
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
It's really cute.
It's really cute. It's a double date, actually.
But it is weird that they never really give him a proper battle morph. I don't think throughout the entire series.
Nope, because it's like Tobias, the red-tailed hawk, is the series mascot almost.
Yeah, and I don't mind it completely because he's been in he has more experience in that morph than anyone in any morphs, so he can probably be pretty crazy.
In fact, I think at multiple points in these series, some of the kids, some of the team, refer to him as their mascot. I think Marco's referred to him as their mascot at least once.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he's done it with pure scorn in his tone a million times, but...
Yeah. Well, this is kind of a fun chapter where they need to get Tobias a dolphin morph, which obviously involves him having to touch the dolphin to acquire it, which, it's a hawk. How's that going to work?
His decision is to dive bomb a dolphin jumping through a hoop in the middle of a performance with hundreds of people looking on. I'm not sure why he thought that was the best way to go.
Yeah, I guess I don't know either. I mean, he very easily could have maybe just flown in and landed on the edge of the tank and hobbled over to one that kind of poked out of the water for a minute.
Yeah, no, he comes down screaming, his classic battle cry
right.
as he grabs onto one. Then he gets stuck for a while, and we have Tobias almost drown, and just good times all around.
Well, and it gives us this dolphin rodeo joke, which is quite popular among the fan base, I think. I didn't know this was the book where we got that, but yeah, it's a funny line.
I haven't heard anybody make the joke outside of the book.
Oh, somebody was selling T-shirts that had a dolphin with a hawk riding it, silhouetted, and it said "Dolphin Rodeo." It's got potential.
I'm okay with that.
I don't remember who was selling those. There's some online store,
but he gets saved by Marco, and they go ahead and do the mission that they got the morph for in the first place.
I just wanted to also point out that we get another instance of Marco trying to, put this Visor 1 nonsense out of his mind for a second by riding a roller coaster as a seagull with Jake.
Yeah. I just like to see them kind of cut loose like that. Just the fact that Jake joins is even better. Just like, for 5 seconds, can we not think about Animorph stuff? Okay, we're riding a roller coaster. We're launching off and flying. Sweet.
It's little moments like this that, make you think for a second maybe being an Animorph doesn't suck.
So they fly out to Royan Island.
Yeah, they land and demorph, and we've actually got, a team meeting where they're plotting strategies here. I always love to see them talking things through.
Yeah, and they pick, they say there's like people running around on the other side of the island. It's not a huge island. It's like some crescent moon-shaped place.
No, the island's not really much of the focus here. They kind of ignore it right away and move on into the water.
Yeah, once they head into the water and Axe takes on his awesome shark morph, which they take a moment to kind of talk about his shark morph, which would be weird if not for the next scene where after they get around the edge and they're kind of enjoying Tobias's thrilling first encounter with the dolphin morph.
Yeah, Tobias loves it, as everyone does. They find this huge underwater evil base protected by a hologram.
And the only reason they find it is because they're echolocating as dolphins. So chalk that up to another coincidence in the book series that, it's a good thing they went dolphin instead of like some other sea-based animal, or they would have never found
jellyfish morph.
Yeah, they would have
fumble around in the dark.
This book literally wouldn't have happened. They couldn't have found the base. It's not like Eric gave them any like really good information. All he says is that they're using Lyrons, and he gave them the name of this island. That's all he said.
Go to the water.
Follow the money.
That was about it. Yeah, so they're hanging out, checking out this secret evil base, and that's when a school of hammerheads shows up. And, everyone's like, oh, what do we do? And Marco's obviously for fleeing. Most of them are for fleeing. The only one that wants to actually stick around and fight is Rachel, because she's nuts.
I do like that they bring back Marco's last encounter with sharks and how he came really, really close to dying. And him talking about how much it hurt to be bitten in half by a shark.
Oh yeah, he says at one point, when he thinks he's gonna get bit, I was about to die, and worst part was I already knew how it would feel.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. That's not bad.
Oh yeah.
And he has a little thing here where, they're all going to run, but he actually takes off as a reaction. He takes off running after they've already kind of decided to leave, but he's the first one out of there, and the rest just kind of follow. And I think this is one of those things where, for almost, a good another half of this book, he's really worried that he looked like a coward. I don't think anyone else noticed that he ran off, really.
I don't think anybody else cared about it because they end up completely surrounded anyway, so nobody's attempt to run away works. And then, working together with teamwork, with old Jakey Poo at the head of the team, they manage to injure at least one of the sharks and draw a little blood, but they're quickly disappointed to learn that the sharks are for some reason intelligent and just go on continuing to attack them.
The sharks aren't acting like sharks, and that's a problem because they're sharks. And and the Animorphs pick up on this, and they don't know what's up, but they're still in a life or death situation. So their fight or flight senses move straight back into flight, and they find a way to outsmart them and get away.
Yeah, just long enough for the sharks to be recalled back to the base by some kind of siren alarm
some kind of thing.
And instantly they're like, we got really lucky there, but let's go check out the base again anyway.
Yeah, not the smartest decisions the Animorphs ever made, but
I can't fault them for it. It makes sense. They gotta see what the sharks are doing, how they're controlling these sharks, because that's a new development.
Yeah, and I think the big question,
controlling sharks at this point.
I think the big question is why? Why would they want to control sharks in the first place? And how did they make these sharks, if they mess with them, how did they make them smarter?
That is exactly what they start to debate once they start debating it. But first, before they can even inspect the base even more, a weird clear submarine shows up with of course, conveniently, Visor 1 and a Lyran both riding inside of it. Just in plain view.
Yeah, well, they say the big see-through submarine it's shaped like a big stingray and stuff, so pretty crazy. Huge sub, your controlled
weird
sub.
Choice, making it clear.
It's this Lyran who's beside Visor 1. I see it. I think he's the one that's throughout the book. Anytime they're around Visor 1 and there's a Lyran nearby.
The mission's over now, and we get another scene here of Marco and his home life. And, this is always kind of the driving force of these Marco's family-centric books, where we see him kind of interacting with his dad, and a lot of inner monologuing about just how crappy his life is, and he's got a lot on his mind, especially concerning his mother right now.
Yep, and it leads him to blow off his homework, which is crazy important.
Well,
kids, do your
not
homework.
When you're an Animorph.
Kids, even if you've got Animorph-esque responsibilities, it's important for you to finish your classwork.
Well, he's blowing off his homework to hang out with his dad, which makes it okay.
It does. And does he mention his? Is this scene where he mentions the first time the picture of his mother at his bedside table, or does that happen later?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll cut
it's
that
not
out.
a detail I remember.
It's an important detail. It comes up 2 times. This is kind of a weird, almost every Animorphs book has kind of a similar structure in that they do a scouting mission. Scouting mission goes terribly wrong, and then they gear up for the actual mission. This is kind of a weird one where they didn't spend a lot of time on the scouting mission. They went out there, even though it was really far away, and a lot more could have happened. It took up a very small portion of this book, and they're already meeting up again to discuss the actual mission to find out what's going on at the space.
Yeah, I thought it was a weird cut to go straight from oh my god, there's, Visor 1 and a Lyran in a submarine, to just well, that was the end of the important parts of that mission.
If you look at this book as not a bunch of missions to, keep the Yeerks from Earth, and it's more about Marco dealing with his mother being the enemy, that's a dramatic cut. That's
the only way I look at the series.
It's the only way I look at this book. I think it's much more interesting to look at it from that angle. I think that's what the author wants us to do. So,
Clearly, and it works.
Yeah.
Marco's just tugging at my heartstrings. Poor little guy.
Basically, once they meet up again, though, they decide that, okay, there's hammerheads. We can do that. We can get those and get in.
Yeah, they need hammerhead morphs.
Yeah, which is this type of convenience. It's lucky that they found a aquarium within, driving distance that has a hammerhead shark.
Oh, yeah, and not just any aquarium. This is Ocean World, my friend. What could that be?
Well, I'd say it's a park that probably has tanks much too small for some of their larger, more sentient creatures. That's what I guess. Ocean World. I think somebody should make a documentary about Ocean World showing the dangers.
#Blackfish.
That's where I was going. Yeah, so Ocean World, this demoralizing and place that needs to be shut down.
#shark petting.
Shark petting.
Because that's what this is really all about, is shark petting right here.
Yeah.
And this is another scene where we've had some of these before. The Animorphs go to acquire a morph, and wherever it is, wherever they go, be it a barn stable with racing horses or an Ocean World aquarium, as soon as they land and demorph and they're into sneaking around mode, they're gonna be found out immediately.
You could make a strong argument that the Yeerks are the main antagonists of this book series. I think you can make just as strong an argument that security guards are the main antagonists of this book series.
Well, you might be able to say that, except that they usually tend to write in a human controller.
Oh yeah, I always wait whenever they have acts demorphed. I always wait for some random person to walk by and be like, "Andalite."
That's an Andalite.
It's like, oh, Yeerks, you're trying a secret invasion. Maybe stop screaming alien names for 5 seconds.
Yeah, who are you alarming, sir? Showing that you know what this strange, unearthly creature is, not a good move when you're out in public.
Well, I love to think that this is a Yeerk who, he's been put on security detail for Ocean World. It's like, what is his role in the invasion?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I was like, why do they conveniently have controllers at, the gardens and here at Ocean World and stuff? But then it makes sense, actually. That is where the Andalite bandits would go to acquire Earth Morphs.
That's what I was thinking about, too, when I was reading this. I was like, oh, wow, that's actually really clever. They have him there as kind of a lookout in case the Andalite bandits try to acquire something from there. So
yeah, never works, but, they gotta try.
Well, it worked. He found him out. He just decided to immediately blow his cover and, tell the incredibly dangerous and intelligent creature that he's aware of it.
Right, yeah, real quick, I thought it was hilarious that, so they're, obviously very, very concerned about how the heck they're actually going to pull this off, this shark petting mission. And Rachel suggests, you know what, 5 of us in Dolphin Morph, we can probably take one of these things. Why don't we just get in the tank and beat it into submission until we can acquire it?
It's pretty screwed up, and I like that, really, without this whole security guard thing happening, that's realistically their only option. That actually is. I mean, even Cassie gets on board with it, and she would never hurt an animal like this. So, I mean, I like that they're all in the mindset of, this is a mission we have to do. We are willing to do this terrible act to be okay with, be able to complete the mission. They're 100% going to do this.
Of course, yeah. So they're walking around, and they've been discovered by these human controllers, and
they get chased into the water walkways of Ocean World. And if you've ever been to one of the SeaWorlds on the coast or some other large aquarium like this, there's a lot of times where you can walk through a tunnel that's just made of glass, and you can see all the animals around you. You're underwater and just walking down one of these moving kind of escalator pathways.
Yeah, in fact, there's a funny moment where Axe is like, oh, why are you guys projecting this underwater look? And Cassie's like, we are underwater. And Axe,
why would you do this?
That he's underwater. Yeah, and his quote is, why do humans do things like this?
It is really, really funny. But anyway, they're trapped between these 2 guards on one of these walkways. And Marco is literally the one who's like, or is it him or is it Jake? One of them's like, everybody hold your breath. And then they look at Axe and ask him, how thick do you think this glass is? And Axe takes the hint and just cuts a big gap into it, and all the pressure blows out the tank.
Yeah, it's a pretty soundproof plan, aside from,
everyone almost dying and drowning. Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty close call. They almost all drown. I mean, they're stuck in this tube. They have to get back to the hole to get out. Or I don't know if the other ones are sucked out, but
Marco lucks into getting stuck into this air conditioning vent, I guess, and so I'm to understand that it's dry in there and there's air, and there's like this the tube below him is filling up with water with the hammerhead inside that's like slowly rising.
Yeah, it's like a big air duct, which I guess maybe you could say the bottom grill fell out of it. When
so is it vertical or is it horizontal then?
Yeah, it's like it's probably goes straight up to the top. Outside of the vents. I don't know. It depends on how... It could have been one of those walkways where once you get to one end of it, it's like opens into a big room or something. Maybe that's where he got stuck in an air duct. But
it just seems like a really weirdly, conveniently shaped setting for this to all happen in.
Yeah, so he goes up into it or whatever. I think it's a little more weird that the shark could fit into it and still be moving around and doing stuff.
Yeah, and I don't get it. I mean, like, does he climb all the way up it? Because he drops from a tall height to kind of drop right on top of the shark, and he stuns it long enough to.
Well, I think he went up into this vertical air duct. That's like it's like when you see in like a hip downtown business or something where the giant air ducts are hanging from the ceiling and stuff. So he climbs up into one straight up, and it's mostly filled with water. But once you get into the air pocket part of it, and once he notices there's a hammerhead shark below him, he starts winching his way up it, like pushing his hands and legs against opposite ends and climbing up it that way. But he's too slippery, he can barely hold on, so that's when he decides to just fall into the shark and try to acquire it.
Yeah, well, I think this would look amazing, visually in perhaps an animation.
It's basically Jaws 3. So, best scene in Jaws 3 is when they're trapped in one of those walkways.
Yeah, but as soon as he falls on top of the shark and stuns it a little bit and acquires it, they kind of float up to the top of the tank where everyone else is conveniently standing around like, hey, Marco, how's it going?
Marco drowned yet?
Yeah. And he's like, oh, here's the shark to acquire.
Yeah, so I'll agree that this scene is a little far-fetched and a lot of things that happen in it. So
they could have just cracked one tiny little section and maybe had the shark kind of flop into the room with him or something, but I don't know. Clearly they're going for a tense kind of action scene here, and it's kind of fun, I guess.
I think it'd be a really cool scene if they had cut all the security guard stuff, maybe have that at the end or something, because in this scene they flat out murdered 2 security guard humans. So
basically
that's got this.
Maybe they survived. Well, Visor 3 would have killed them anyway.
No, they didn't survive. They said a point of that they didn't see the guards afterwards, and they were saying that because then the
2 guards disappeared.
Yeah, and then they can't tell the story of the 5 human kids and an Andalite. I think they could have done something though instead of this whole running around action scene. They could have done just a really cool kind of tense scene where they're all up top of the tank looking into it, and the hammerhead keeps swimming by, and so they're trying to plan when they could catch it to morph it, and
that is an interesting enough scenario on its own that just that exchange, that little event, would have been enough to sustain my interest in the chapter. I don't think they need to mix in enemies at every single turn.
Yeah, and it could have been really funny because they could have really planned it out and figured out when the hammerhead's going to come by and how long they can get it under morphine relaxation meditation period. And but then they could have forgotten that the tank's full of other sharks. So, you could have had a little action scene there or whatever where they're trying to morph the shark.
It could have been a tense, fun scene. I think a lot of times they forget that it doesn't always need to be controllers that the kids are facing. A lot of times just natural Earth habitat and Earth animals are more than sufficient to work as villains for a scene.
If Animorphs the series could take a look at any other superheroes as a basis for their plots and how they should treat their characters, all you have to look at is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is one of the most interesting comic book heroes, not because he's fighting Doc Ock in every other comic, but because he's got like bills to pay and he's doing badly in school because of his Superman or his Spider-Man duties. And, you know, that's what the Animorphs are. They're kids who have kid problems. They just happen to also be fighting a war with superpowers. So
I mean, every once in a while, I just want a little shark petting chapter, you know? Come on.
Yeah. I want a whole book of Marco.
I'm surprised Visor 3 didn't show up here.
I want a whole book where Cassie morphs a shark and kills something and finds out she really enjoys it and feels terrible about it, and she has to come to terms with the fact that she likes killing things. Boom.
Yeah, there you go.
I want that book.
Get on it, Applegate.
No, I'm sick of
That's the next one. The very first book she does coming out of retirement from Animorphs is a Cassie book.
Cassie is a psycho losing her mind.
Anyway, we have a new scene here where
Yeah.
everybody's back at school. Well, Marco and Jake are back at school. This is a scene that I could have done without, to be honest with you.
I love this scene. I think this scene's awesome. This is the type of scene we were just talking about wishing we would have.
Yeah, it is, but it's I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous.
It is, but no, I think the book actually sells it. So basically, Marco is antsy at school the next day. He's kind of on edge, and the reason for it is that he's like really jazzed to go on this mission. Not that he's excited in like a good way. He's tense about going to see his mother again, and especially about morphing a shark. Basically, okay, there's a thing with rape victims that they feel powerless, and a big thing a lot of psychologists will say with rape victims is a big part of how they move on is finding a way to get their confidence back and taking charge of their lives and feeling like they have control. So that's 100% what this scene is. Marco, who almost died in this really traumatic shark attack, he's like extremely excited and on edge all day because he wants to try out this morph. He wants to be the thing that made him feel so powerless. And
yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah, so he goes to he can't even wait till school lets out. He goes to the school pool, which we're seeing for the first time for some reason.
Incredibly stupid.
And tries to morph Hammerhead Shark in the school pool, which is not saltwater or anything.
Smart move, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously it goes wrong, and I love the idea of this, that he's about halfway through morph. I don't think he's like legs have combined or anything yet.
No, he's not too terrible yet. He does have like shark teeth and shark eyes.
He like grew his dorsal fin or something, but
yeah, and a fin, and I think his hands might have been turning a little gray.
Yeah, but basically these two bullies show up, jump into the pool. They must have seen him like walking out of the locker room or something and followed him, because
yeah, maybe you'd think he'd search around a little bit to make sure he's alone.
He's not thinking well right now. I think that the book makes that clear.
He's not okay.
Yeah, so when these kids start picking on him, that's one thing. Marco...
Oh, they go overboard.
Yeah, well, Marco's not too biased, though. He was ready to brush it off. But then, of course, because this book is this book, they make a crack about his mom and how he doesn't have a mom to go crying home to anymore. And
after physically assaulting him...
Yeah, and Marco is pretty close to murdering these kids.
Well, yeah, and he's still, a quarter morphed. Quarter
morph. That sounds cool. But yeah, he's halfway through morph. He's already like, I don't know if I hope he's channeling some of the shark instincts, because otherwise he's like ready to rip out their throats.
Because he mentions like the shark's eyes. He saw through the shark's eyes. And, he wanted to. He couldn't stop looking at the kid's his neck. He wanted to bite his neck.
Yeah. So obviously, thankfully, somewhere off in the rest of the school, Jake's some kid is getting bullied by other bullies. Radar is going off.
Marco detector rings.
No, it's his bully detector. Jake just runs around the school helping nerdy kids fight off bullies. So obviously that went off, and he's like, "Oh, it's Marco," and
he's in the room pretty quick.
Yeah, he steps in and
kind of talks him down.
Yeah, he talks him off the edge. And it's a fairly tense scene. I like the scene a lot. I was a big fan of it. Especially,
it's cool. It's definitely cool. It's just a little bit silly.
No, and I love
how serious it is.
I love the Jake Marco dialogue where it's like the bullies. I love any scene where the Animorphs who deal with real crap on a regular basis, like actual adult things. I love any scene where they're talking in front of someone, like another kid, or someone who has no idea what they're talking about, or how serious the situation is. Like, this happens regularly.
Jake's telling him, like, just let it go, man. These aren't the guys you want to hurt. Save it for the enemies. Stuff like that, where they're, talking like big shots.
I'd say this
is regular people.
This is the type of scene that it's the reason I like Jake and Marco's relationship.
Yeah, well, we have, like I said, this is a good scene between Jake and Marco, where Jake even considers asking if, he should make Marco sit the mission out because of the way he's acting. And Marco tells him, in no uncertain terms, that he'll either be going on this mission or he'll just die.
Do you think even Jake has that power at this point in the series? I mean, I feel like later on they'd listen to him and trust him. But right now, do you think if he told somebody to sit out a mission, they actually would?
No, definitely not. Marco has just proven that he's
Yeah,
not.
but that's Marco. I mean, Marco and Jake are too close for Marco to really... And honestly, Marco is too smart and too in control of himself to really treat Jake like a leader. It's his best friend, and Marco knows what he's doing. He's not like a loose cannon like Rachel, who I feel like Jake could actually talk.
He tells Rachel to sit out a mission, and she just invents an excuse to whisk away the problem.
Yeah.
So that she can still end up doing the mission.
Rachel would kill a man if it meant she got to go on a mission and also prove Jake wrong in the same action.
Basically. But now is where we kind of get into the meat and potatoes here of this book. This is the big mission.
They go back to the island. We are back at Royan Island, and now
one last powwow.
Yeah, now they know what to do. They know where they're going. They've got a somewhat decent plan. You could almost argue that this is the real scout mission, because that's their entire mission. They're not here to blow up the facility. They're not here to do anything else. They're just here to see what the crap is going on and see what this place is.
Still, a lot of missing information.
Yeah, Eric is terrible.
It's extraordinarily dangerous if the Yeerks come into control of more of these Lyrans.
Yeah, they're worried about that, and their curiosity is piqued by smart hammerhead sharks. So that's really why they're back so quickly.
Yeah, and it's really cool here. They have a little private meeting where Jake asks Marco just one more time, if he's certain about doing this, and of course Marco's down. He's always down to go rescue his mother, or at least that's what he's going to try to do. We get the entire team kind of walking into the water, and this is kind of a cool moment. I especially think it's more of a visual moment where they're all walking into the water to try out their hammerhead morphs. It's just cool. I mean, Tobias is riding on Rachel.
Yeah, I love the... this is going to continue in some books coming up shortly, where Tobias starts riding on Rachel's shoulder, and she's like, she doesn't think twice about it. It's just, he just goes up there, and it's just a regular thing.
Yeah, she's pretty boss.
Mm-hmm.
Studied falconry.
Just for him.
That's how she charmed him.
But as they're walking into the water, obviously a little bit of foreshadowing here, but Marco cuts himself on a shell, and
this is while they're morphing.
Yeah,
they're doing the shark morph.
I thought it was just when they were walking in, but
no, it's while he's in morph because his legs slip out.
Oh yeah. His legs are the first thing to morph, so he slips out and falls down, and on the way cuts himself on a little piece of coral or shell or something. And,
you know what? One thing I wanted to point out. I'm sorry, I didn't point this out earlier either. This is when they're all talking about doing the morph again, and I just wanted to point out that it's a parallel here between Marco wanting to do this hammerhead shark morph and have that like power and be a predator that we saw back in book 10, I want to say, the android. Where, he was really desperate about getting into that spider morph and, like, being a predator and losing himself there. Like, that's what he's all about, really. You hit the head on the nail on the head.
The hammerhead on the shark.
And you said he's wanting to put himself in a position of power so he doesn't have to feel weak. He does that a lot.
Yeah, which goes back to, a lot of that goes back to not only the first time he was attacked by sharks, but the fact that earlier in the book he was the first to run away from a battle, and that's what he brings up again and is struggling with. And it's funny because Marco's first book was book number 5, The Predator.
Right, yeah. Animorphs versus Predator, one of my favorites.
Oh man, Animorphs would destroy the Predator, totally. True fact. So they morph hammerheads, and the first thing they all do is, just like usual, is they lose themselves the instincts for a little bit. And it's funny because they have a little moment of kind of going into a frenzy, and it's caused by Marco cutting himself on a seashell while he was morphing.
Yep, and it drives him a little bit crazy until Marco comes to the realization that it's his own blood, which is disgusting. But this allows him to snap out of it and kind of snap his friend.
Yeah, before most of them.
Like we see in so many other books.
Well, it's funny, though, that he snaps himself out of this, and he kind of has to help the others do it. But I feel like it even mentions that Tobias got a hold of it really quick. So maybe Tobias was just sitting by and he's like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, because he's used to the Predator mind. He knows. They all regain their senses here and start swimming down to the underwater evil base. And Marco pretty much immediately sees his mom again through like one of the windows. Yeah. She's just like hanging out in the office doing
maybe the
paperwork.
Yeerks should have less opaque buildings.
Probably. Remember Visor 3 and his translucent box technology?
He's forced that throughout the rest of the Yeerks facilities. He's so in love.
Yeah, but he's forced them to turn it to clear mode all the time because he was like, nothing good happened when I made the box darkened. We're gonna have everything.
That totally seems
now.
Like
he took
that 100% seems like Visor 3's thinking process. It's like that one time I used something that wasn't opaque, everything went bad. Everything is opaque now.
Right. He fails to take into consideration the only reason it failed was because the Animorphs were in the thing that should have stayed translucent. Not the other way around. It's perplexing. He's such
Everything's clear. That submarine over there, make it clear.
We got a secret underwater evil
clear.
Base. Clear.
He's just really worried about people playing on Reddit while they're at work, so he wants to see what they're doing through the walls.
Yeah. He can be like 5 offices over and just see that somebody's on Facebook or someone's Instagram.
Jerry, get in my office right now. You're on Twitter again.
It's like a big Hork-Bajir wearing a suit and tie walks in. Jerry,
I see you've logged 14 hours on personal Twitter page this week. Grash, Visor. I didn't mean to.
I would read that book.
I want that book.
Just the day-to-day and the lives of Hork-Bajir office workers.
Yeah. He's going to get demoted into like a Jed morph or a Jed body.
Yeah. So I'm confused as to the layout of this secret underwater complex because they describe it as being kind of small. It almost sounds like a very small, like just rectangular kind of bland building with some windows.
I don't think it's that small. They haven't described it as small at all. Because they have these huge openings that could fit the submarine inside them. And when they get inside, there's like catwalks and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The initial impression I got was that it was a small building, but they're able to swim up inside of it, and it's obviously a large complex because they're going to whatever convenient room they happen to.
You were probably fooled by the hologram. That hologram technology will get you every time.
I swear there was just air bubbles there a second ago.
Coral. So yeah, the shark morphs work. They get past the smart sharks. And once they swim into the facility, they're almost immediately grabbed by this automated shark line of production. Robotic arms. Yeah,
it's freaky because they're like sitting around, discussing what their next move is. They want to get some good eyes to start looking around the base, and they want to go fly. But yeah, the sharks start hauling in, and all of a sudden they're grabbed by this weird machine. And this would freak me out.
Yeah, if you're in shark morph, which if a shark stops moving, it dies. So obviously it doesn't like to stop for anything. But secondly, you're this water-based creature, and you're grabbed by this giant robotic arm that stops you from moving
and lifted out of the water.
And not only that, but once they get out of the water and they're going through this production line, all these other sharks are getting injections, so some kind of drug or something that's expanding their minds and making them able to. They assume that's starting down a line to get them so they can have Yeerks and be used as host bodies to fight as shock troopers in the Lyron homeworld invasion.
Yeah, they're basically just kind of force evolving the shark's brains to make them smarter and make them, actually capable of holding Yeerks. Because I guess their current brains are not Yeerk.
Now, the problems that the Animorphs face are that occasionally, I guess, other hammerhead sharks probably swim into this facility and are grabbed by the same machine. And whenever the machine detects a hammerhead that's not part of their group already, it will go the extra mile and drill into their brains and implant it with a little kind of beacon implant that, starts the process. Just a strange little device that gets drilled into their heads, and that's terrifying enough right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so once they are let go by this machine, they quickly go back to human / andalite / bird.
Hawk.
And they decide, okay, we're going to take a look around this facility. We need to go one of our stealth morphs. Best one we could do for this, according to Cassie, we should go fly. That's the best one.
Yeah, they're gonna carry out their original plan here before they got grabbed by the Shark-O-Matic, which was to go fly. Which they give it their all.
Like many of Cassie's plans, they all almost die immediately.
Well, this is kind of weird, but apparently the implant that was put in their heads doesn't morph or go to Z-space or anything like that. It stays embedded within their heads and would split open a fly's head should they try to morph anything.
Yep.
Too small.
So basically, if we're chalking this up, shoes and Yerk implants, no dice.
Yeah, it's one of the first instances we see of something in or on their bodies not morphing.
What are you talking about? Clothes and shoes. I can't morph those at all.
Well, it's just kind of weird how this brain implant can stay where it is in their heads and not affect them after they've already morphed back to human.
No, it depends on where this thing was. If it's just sitting on the back of their skull and it's a device meant to go inside the brain of a creature, I'm sure it's, somewhat biological, or it's Yerk technology. I'm sure it's advanced enough that it's secreting antibodies and things to make it.
It's a convenience written into
No,
the
it's not.
plot
We
solely
put in
for that
no.
reason.
This is not. I'll fight you on this because
This is only to limit their small
no.
morphs.
Look, okay.
It's a
Listen,
limiter that's put on a level of
Shut
a
your
video
whore mouth. Listen to me for 2 seconds. So, you've got this plan by the Yerks to implant these devices, which are made to go, they're supposed to be drilled into aquatic creatures, straight into the brain, and placed there. Alright? That means that not only is this device, made to go into one of the most sensitive areas of a creature that exists, it's also made to heal up the wound as quickly as possible so that these sea creatures can go back in the ocean without seawater rushing into their brains after surgery. So, I would say that this device is pretty advanced, and it's made specifically to be in a biological area without hurting that area, specifically the brain. So, I think they're fine. And the fact that...
Well, obviously it's advanced. It's got plot-defining
I hate
traits.
you so much. I quit the podcast.
This is that level of Animorphs MGS that I was talking about, where you get in there and it's like, oh no, here's a handicap for this level. You can't use your bug morphs.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, it's true. We don't want yet another book.
Without my
I
bug
thank
morph.
I
How
thank
will I
you,
ever
Katherine
complete this
Applegate, for doing this because we don't need another book where they're sneaking around in cockroach or fly morph. We're gonna get plenty more of that. It's nice to have things mixed up, and it's an interesting plot development. They can't. It both helps explain more about the plan to, use these hammerhead sharks as shock troopers, and also gives them a restriction and makes the book more interesting. I'm so sorry she's such a good author and keeps our interest.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I'll give you that. Well, anyway, they decide that the next course of action here should be, all right, screw it, we can't really do stealth, so we're going to have to split up into some groups here. One of us is going to be a distraction team, and the other is going to be a... Whatever, Marco. Just go find your mom.
Well, they come up with the idea. I mean, Axe helps them out that, okay, we just had implants put in our head. Because Yerks always cover their tracks, if somehow this base is destroyed, these devices will liquefy, and we'll be saved.
Convenient.
That's something the Yerks do. They can't. They've already shown in the past, literally the last book, that they'll do anything to keep the humans from finding alien technology. So, it makes sense within the universe that's been created.
Including Defy Plot. We've got Tobias, Marco, and Axe. That's the group. And this is a really good group, actually. I like all these characters, and I like their interactions. especially when they're more comedic, but this is not really. We have them all decide to go bird morph because that, apparently works, because Tobias is proof of that. They're just going to fly around this base, I guess, looking for Visor 1, while Jake in his tiger morph is there to give him a distraction.
Yeah, and as they're, running around and Jake and them are going off to, just start a fight, basically, they do run into Visor 1. Marco specifically splits up and walks into this room, this random office, and Axe and Tobias are right behind him, and he shuts the door immediately because Visor 1's just standing in the middle of the room.
Oh, I want to read my thing now. This is from when they are giving the traditional summary of the mission and how terrible it is. And it comes from Jake this time, where Jake says, "Rachel may be right. We can't have this. Period. We cannot have Yerk control devices in our heads. We're underwater with implants in our brains and psychic Lyran aliens running around. This is seriously not cool."
I like how when Jake tries to do the Marco sum up, it's just explaining it straightforward, and he's just so frustrated by it. He's not like making a joke about it or trying to convince anyone or anything. He's just so exasperated. He's just straight up.
Yeah, I can imagine his.
He's like, "No, we're the Animorphs. We can't have Yerk implants. This is bad."
Yeah. They're going to know all of our secrets.
This is not rad, guys. This is not rad at all.
This does not rock.
So anyway, back to Marco finding his mom and seeing her face to face for the second time in the series.
And Marco, for some reason, just steps away from his friends as soon as they're all in human morph. And he's like, "Oh, BRB, guys." And he just steps into the office that's conveniently occupied by Visor 1.
Yeah, well, they're right behind him. He shuts the door on their face once he sees Visor 1 is in there. Because Axe is in Andalite morph. It is Andalite body.
Well, yeah, that throws a wrench in the plan.
Yeah, so he closes the door as quickly as possible so that she doesn't see that. And then he's just standing awkwardly in the room with his mother, who notices him and is assumes he's one of these technicians. I guess she probably called, maintenance. He's fix the air conditioning or something.
Yeah, we need 4 technicians. Where the heck are they? And Marco's, kind of dumbstruck. He can't really talk, but he manages to give her a little excuse that's kind of believable. Blaming Visor 3, of course. He's an easy target.
And he's kind of... he's probably sweating bullets at this point, and he's flinching, just the fact that he's standing in the same room as his mom. And Visor 1's not stupid. She picks up on this immediately. She chalks it up, luckily, as she recognizes his host body, because I'm sure her host body is flipping out inside of her.
Oh, she is, yeah. She even points out that she
Yeah, and so she recognizes it, and she chalks his awkwardness up to his host body reacting the same way. Interesting scene where she's telling Marco that his mother is just crying and screaming inside of her, and it's just a nonchalant conversation to Visor 1.
Well, yeah, she's like, you need to control your host body better. I'm sure you're aware that your host is the biological son of my host.
It's like a VH1 behind the music thing. It's just like the little thing that pops up, a little note at the bottom of the screen. It's like, "Oh, you're the son of my host body."
Yeah, it doesn't go so smoothly, I guess.
It does not.
She just leaves him right there. She's just basically like, "Hey, control your host body.
Yeah, well,
I'm out of here. I gotta go deal with these."
Yeah, in the background, you're hearing Jake and them, whatever fight they're starting. And again, Visor 1 is just sitting there calmly with Marco while you can hear things blowing up in the background and sirens going off. And...
She's in the middle of doing Yerk payroll.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I guess just fix whatever you're here to fix. I gotta run, check this thing out, check these Andalite bandits out real quick.
Got a war to fight. BRB."
Stop saying BRB.
No. LOL.
So Marco walks out the door first, though, and he's scared to death that Axe and Tobias are going to be there. Or Visor 1 walks out first, but Marco's like, "Ugh." Yeah,
Marco goes out there and immediately sees that Tobias and Axe are missing.
Luckily, because otherwise Visor 1 would have seen them.
Well, yeah, basically. And, this is only for a split second for him to look out the window and see this giant yellow water snake. That's really the only description we're given of Visor 3's latest morph. That's swimming towards the base with his elite evil Hork-Bajir diving squad that I imagine are all in like Speedos. And they have the Baywatch red kind of lifesaver thing.
Well, I like the idea that these crappy diving suits are, like Hork-Bajir and crappy diving suits are what they've been using on the Lyron homeworld so far. And that's why they've got this whole plan in motion with the sharks, because these suck.
Yeah, basically. This is the best thing we have. That's like Hork-Bajir with water wings.
They can't swim. Millions of Hork-Bajir drowned in the first wave assault of planet Lyron.
It would be funny if they swam like Dr. Zoidberg in Futurama. It's like a little doggy paddle almost. Yeah, and so this, like I said, it literally is just they're gone so that they don't get caught for one thing, and so that he can see Visor 3 and his team coming. Because then he steps into another room where Tobias and Axe actually are. And everyone else is like, okay, Marco's here, cool, let's regroup. We should probably go ahead to help Jake's team, because they sound like they're getting their asses handed to them right about now. And Marco warns them that, of course, Visor 3's on his way, because what is an Animorphs book without a visit from good old Visor 3? It's like a visit from Santa Claus.
We even have Visor 1 right here, but they're like, we should probably throw Visor 3 in there as well. He's a staple.
They at least make a fact to point out, I can't believe he's here. Was he supposed to be here? Or no, I don't think so. I think this is just a coincidence.
I like them talking about coincidences.
I bet it is.
It's funny, though. It's good. And honestly, this is a major facility for the Yeerks, so why not? Anyway, so they want to help them out, but instead, Axe hacks the computer and finds out that the Yeerk invasion of Lyron isn't going well at all. And that's why they're doing these shock troopers, to help them out and expand their army so they can actually fight a winning battle.
Yeah, Axe demonstrates his once again his plot-defying ability to hack and do absolutely anything he wants to with a computer.
Well, okay, I mean that's like a central part of his race, though, how advanced they are. And I imagine every time he walks up to a computer, it's like the 1998 classic with Angelina Jolie, Hackers, where they walk up to a computer and there's all these 3D landscapes and he's just doing crazy stuff that makes no sense.
No, I know. Yes, that's what he provides. That's how he moves the plot
hilarious.
along. Nice reference. Yeah, well, while he's in there tooling around doing all this stuff, he discovers that the way to get the implants out of their heads is by blowing up the base, essentially. Flooding it, I guess. But that will trigger the liquidation program that they've built into these brain monitoring programs. So Axe goes ahead and, sets the base to self-destruct mode in 5 minutes. So yeah, we're moving on here to the climax of this story. This is when, it's down to the crunch time here. We got 5 minutes until absolute base implosion, and everything's going to be flooded. And they make a point to note out that they will be needing gills.
But this is actually pretty risky because they go battle morph to try to help out Jack to try to help out Jake, Cassie, and Rachel in any way.
Yeah, they've got a 5-minute battle timer here. God, I hate those missions.
Once they do get out there and everyone's basically congregating in, is it the main bay area where this whole fight takes place, probably? The big, where the submarine is and stuff?
Yeah, I would assume this is probably some kind of...
Well, yeah, it is, because the water's
everybody's there.
The opening to the water's there, so... Yeah, this is probably in their big submarine housing bay. They go out, and that's where Jake, Cassie, and Rachel have been fighting for their lives, and actually losing at this point until they get there.
Yeah, this is a kind of a huge epic battle going on that we join in progress. And Marco's in his gorilla morph, always trustworthy for battle scenarios here. He rushes in to help everybody, and tangles with a Hork-Bajir, and kind of winds up getting sliced pretty bad. And it's all made worse by the fact that Visor 1 is standing around screaming for, the Hork-Bajir to kill him, murder him. It's just, I can imagine it would be a terrifying scenario while you're fighting this battle for your life, having your
just mother of the year
deceased
over
mother
here in the
screaming
corner.
at you for your death.
She just wants him to be stronger.
Yeah, Marco, he manages to fight it off, luckily, but he comes face to face with with his mother, Visor 1, again.
And for the second time, manages to not talk to her. So, good for you, Marco.
Yeah, I'm proud of him. He managed to resist talking to her once again. Even though that happens, he manages to stay strong.
Sub-Visor 475, I'm declaring.
The one that I assume is on this base, the only Lyran controller there is, appears and basically just tries to warn the Visor that it's not an Andalite. And we get this situation where there's another misunderstanding, and it's all cut off in time before it can be fully explained.
I love that the Animorphs' biggest fear on this mission is the fact that there are controllers with psychic abilities. And the first time that comes up, where a Lyran has figured them out, is trying to tell Visor 1 of all people, the actual smart enemy that they have to deal with, that, hey, so these aren't Andalites, these are humans. And you know, the Visor doesn't even take it seriously. But luckily, Marco gets in there and punches him out before he can say anything that would clarify the situation.
The Yeerks get in their own way. This Lyran controller tries to warn the Visor that it's not an Andalite. Before they can all get it pieced together, this one, Visor 3, shows up in his giant.
This is an awesome scene. Okay, I love this visual. You've got Visor, I assume like Visor 3, like snakes up really fast. Like he like coils up and he's like standing like a cobra or something, like 20 feet in the air.
Oh, this would be an epic
20 feet in the air. He's this huge, yellow, crazy ocean snake. And Visor 1 is this little, probably like 5'7" older woman, you know, in her late 40s or early 50s or something. And she is berating and tearing down Visor 3 like he's a child. And she's talking seriously down to him. And it's just awesome. And the whole time, the Andalite bandits are sitting right there in various animal morphs. I mean, come on, this is an amazing visual.
Oh yeah, this would be a great climax.
And I think Kay Applegate and Michael Grant, I think they get that any conversation with Visor 1 and Visor 3 together is going to be hilarious. Like their political arguments. It's like a married couple.
Well, yeah, because Visor 1 is one of the only characters that we have that actually talks down to Visor 3. Everybody else is, scared of and respectful towards Visor 3. So it's good that we have a character who's finally saying, what we've been saying this whole time. You're an idiot! Yeah, they sit there and they bicker like a married couple until the self-destruct announcement comes on, which kind of rattles them.
I love what Visor 3 says right after they hear it. Is Visor 1 goes running off to a computer to try to stop it, and Visor 3's like, oh, you better hurry, I hear these Andalites are clever bastards, or something like that. They're clever devils when they get a hold of these computers. Like, he doesn't care if the place floods, he can just swim away.
He doesn't care, he read book 8. They do whatever they want with computers. So Visor 3's attacking the group and manages to catch Axe.
Well, Axe trips. Axe dodges and trips, and that's why Visor's able to get him in his mouth.
It wasn't even through skill.
Luckily, Rachel takes a hold of Visor 3's midsection with her grizzly morph and talks to him, which I thought this was awesome. That the first human to break their code of silence is Rachel. She's bold enough to understand the situation and say, don't make a move or I'm going to rip you in half.
Yeah. Well, and then immediately after that, Marco says something pretty snarky before...
Yeah, Marco's like... I'm going to read the scene verbatim. So this is Marco's perspective, obviously. I stepped in close, took careful aim at the snakehead, drew back my arm, powered the massive bunch of muscles in my neck and shoulders, put 400 pounds of weight into it, and punched the Visor in the nose. Negotiate this, I said, as my fist met the squishy, soft snake snout.
Negotiate this?
because the Visor 3 is basically, he tells Rachel that we're in a standoff. Now we gotta negotiate. And Marco just walks up and negotiate this, punches him out. And he goes flying, too. He lets Axe go, and he flies into the water, trailing like blood all the way.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, well, they successfully managed to defeat the Visor once again, and immediately everyone's attention is now drawn to Visor 1.
Yeah, and Rachel and Axe, they kind of berate Marco for a second for leaving the Visor 1 alive when he had a chance to kill her. So they run off first. Rachel and Axe leave, and then Jake and Marco and It doesn't really talk about Cassie or Tobias much here, but in fact, I don't think Cassie's mentioned the entire underwater facility.
No.
But anyway,
they're not important.
But she doesn't chime in or anything. It's like they forgot to write her in. Anyway, so Jake and Marco kind of have, while they're running towards back to Visitor One's office, Jake tells Marco to go ahead and to do what's right. When Marco says, "What should I do?" It's my mom, whatever. Jake doesn't tell him one way or the other. You should kill her. You should keep her alive. He just says, "Do what's right." And Marco gets a lot out of that from the look of things.
What he feels is right is obviously not kill his mother.
Yeah, but he also makes a hard decision.
Yeah, he follows them into the office again, where Rachel and Axe kind of have her cornered and outpowered.
Yeah, they're about to kill her.
Right, but before they can finish her off, Marco kind of jumps in and intervenes and reveals his big secret. And it must seem very strange to Visitor One, who's standing around watching these
stare at each other.
Bandits
Yeah.
privately Thoughtspeak to each other for like minutes.
And so they let her go, but she's already done her damage to the computer. She overrid the self-destruct sequence.
Yeah, and they're very again like Rachel. As soon as Marco reveals that it's his mother, Rachel's like and she throws her and lets her go and lets her live. But Axe is like, well, are we sure about this? He's got to question it, obviously.
Yeah. So Axe runs over to the computer to try to restart the sequence and have the, facility blow up so they can get these implants out of their heads and obviously stop, or at least help out with the Lyron invasion. Doesn't really seem like they're a problem in my mind, but whatever. Maybe you should focus on saving Earth before you save another planet. Maybe there's some Lyron Animorphs who can help out with that one.
Sure.
But before Axe can do anything to get the self-destruct sequence going again, Visitor 1 whips out a Dracon beam, or goes for the Dracon beam she had. Marco just reacts. He doesn't wait for her to shoot anybody or do anything. He grabs a nearby chair, still in Gorilla Morph, and just throws it as hard as he can towards her. But, either intentionally or unintentionally, he misses. Ooh. He doesn't even know. We
don't know.
And hits the glass wall behind her and shatters, or at least makes a crack in it, which is enough to the pressure outside to just blow open the window.
Yeah, so computer program be damned. This flooding is happening, and it happens when the plot demands it happens, damn it.
This water comes in, hits all of them. It's like a fire hose 3 inches away from their face. And yeah, they're all just swept up in it and swept into the main Bay area again, outside the offices. And it's pretty intense. Even in Gorilla Morph, Marco's almost thinks he's going to die in this scene.
Well, yeah, every time they're swept away into shark and controller-infested water, it's not generally a good time.
It is not.
That's not a good time to be an Animorph, really.
Mm.
Everybody's getting swept up in the water, and, Marco's kind of struggling in his Gorilla Morph, and I think they all manage to demorph eventually, but Marco does see the one Lyran go swimming after his mother.
Yeah, well, she's floating. She's floating face down, like a ways away. And Marco wants to go and save her, but Rachel grabs him and convinces him to go. But the last thing he sees before he gets out of the facility is that same Subvisor 754 Lyron swimming over to her body. So, could mean she's still alive. Maybe.
Yeah.
She is. Spoilers.
We'll see about that. Yeah, so everybody demorphs and goes shark again. And there's a little bit more of a struggle with some ragtag sharks that are still hanging out around the area. And Marco goes a little bit crazy here at the end, as the team tends to do under extreme moments of stress.
It's actually good that Marco, it's kind of him getting a release. And it's him fulfilling his fantasy of going kind of power crazy with this shark morph.
Yeah, and he goes freaking crazy with it and almost ends up attacking his friends, and Jake has to talk him down once more. That's Jake's...
His AA sponsor? Yeah.
Jake's like his sponsor. Yeah, his Rageaholics Anonymous sponsor. They fight off some sharks, and, he takes it a little too far, and Jake eventually manages to calm him down, and they figure out that the control vices are destroyed, along with the evil underwater base. So we don't have to worry about those things anymore. The implants in their heads all liquidate, and We get kind of a Marco sort of recap where he's reflecting on just what it's like to lose his mother again. This is like the third time he's
struggling
lost
with
his
the
mother.
idea that whether she's actually dead or not. Again, like, can he let this go? Can he move on? And he's just trying to decide whether he thinks she's actually dead. And during this, Rachel knows the secret now, and I think it's heavily implied that, Cassie and Tobias are not going to be far off in learning this.
Well, yeah, that's what he suspects, is that immediately they're all going to know now. Although I don't know.
I think it's probably,
when
if I would bet
Cassie
anything,
figures
it's
it out.
not going to be in the book. It's just between this book and the next book, they'll figure it out. Yeah. So
They'll
before
all
that,
know,
though,
yeah.
Rachel mentions that she tries to talk to Marco at first, and he's not having any of that. But she mentions she hears the sub, and she actually does it in such a way that he doesn't think it's like her just placating him. She actually, thinks she hears something.
Yeah, he thinks maybe she's pitying me here, but she manages to spin it into a nice little flirting session almost. That's what I call it.
Yeah, she goes.
Whenever
And
they do,
I
they're
like that
teasing
how it's
each
written
other.
because she goes into her exact normal way of teasing him. She's just as harsh, and that's what he needed. That's what he wanted. He just didn't want to be pitied.
Yeah.
So good on you, Rachel. You did a good deed.
And it really ties into a little bit earlier in the book when Marco's trying not to freak his teammates out on the mission by acting how he normally acts. And, he just points out, I'm giving them what they want. So I'm making fun of Tobias and quipping with Rachel.
That could be a side series. Quipping with Rachel.
Quipping with Rachel. Coming this fall to TNN.
Anyway, so that's the last thing we get is, and Jake is very aware of how Marco feels about his mom and not wanting to be pitied and everything. But he can't help himself. He says, I'm only going to ask this once, but are you doing all right, buddy? You okay? And Marco, he's struggling with whether his mom's actually alive or not. He's normally a fairly cynical person. So it's kind of nice here at the very end, Marco. He says, yeah, Jake, but I'll be a lot better once she's free. So he decides to believe that she's still alive and that he can save her. I thought that was a nice little ending. Like, we didn't need another bookend scene like we normally get. We end right here, right after the mission. I like that.
Yeah, it was a good ending.
Mm-hmm.
I have no qualms about the ending.
So, okay. Well, that's the book. That's it.
Well, yeah, let's escape the discussion and dive into our reviews.
Very clever.
Wondering which roller coaster has the highest top speed, or what exhibit is our guide's favorite in the park? Just ask them. They love to share their opinions and critical analysis to help you better plan your day.
I'm going to do my review first for once. How about that? Because I feel like yours is what
okay.
we're waiting for. It's the mysterious one. I have no idea what you're going to give it at this point. I really don't.
Oh, all right.
All right, so The Escape. So I have somewhat mixed feelings on this book. I read it. I love the plot. I love the general mythology building we do in this book. A lot more of Marco and his mom, which is just excellent all the way through. Love that whole plot line throughout the series. And this is a pivotal book in that. I mean, this is where he more confronts her and deals with her. I mean, the last time he was so mixed up with his feelings on just finding out his mom was alive, there wasn't a lot happening there as far as his personal interaction with her. This one, you have a scene where they're talking about their host body's relationship. And I mean, it's just, definitely a lot more building on that. And I think there's a lot of great scenes here with Marco. I think the pool scene is really great, him and Jake, and him dealing with just everything in this book. I think it's also a good book for the sense that it veers off from the normal Marco plight, where he's worried about his dad, or he's worried about dying, or being an animorph, or anything like that. We get into more of the meat and potatoes and why he is an animorph, is to save his mom. And his struggles with that, and his struggles as an animorph in general, are way more interesting in this book. I think it's a really, really great focus on that. We do have some weird scenes, like the ocean world thing that's a little crazy, and I actually do like the opening Rainforest Cafe, or Amazon Cafe opening. It's just kind of a funny little side mission for them that they all think is pretty harmless, but it's a good opening for the book. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I've read this book before and I liked it a lot in the past, but I really like this book. I think it's one of the better ones we've run across so far. And there's nothing crazy special about it. It's not like exceedingly clever or funny or anything, even for a Marco book. I think it is well written for the most part, and it does follow the kind of generic Animorphs structure for the most part as well. But there's so many elements of this book I like. The mythology stuff isn't just good pivotal moments. I think the mythology is really built into the plot and the character development in this book, which I think is the best mythology books, not where they just move the overall mythology of the series forward, but it's actually an important part of this book and the character growth. For those reasons, I would give this book a low 4 out of 5 Amazon Cafe appetizers. 4 out of 5.
Ooh. Okay.
A low 4 out of 5.
Wow. You know what's funny is you thought we were all divided on our opinions of this book, because when I had first finished reading it, I gave you a call, and I think the tone of that conversation was I was a little bit disappointed. I came off as sounding a little disappointed to you, right? Yeah. Well, that was because I had went into this book with certain expectations, because I have read it back in my days of youth, but I hadn't read it since. So I remembered a couple of things about it. I remembered, the head implants when they're hammerhead sharks, and obviously the fact that they encounter Visor 1 again. I was expecting a little bit more development with Marco and his mom in this one. Honestly, I thought this was one where he finally made contact with her as mother and son.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's why I was a little bit let down by the ending, where it just kind of reset the whole clock on their relationship, where it's like, well, now he had her and he lost her again. This is the third time. Marco needs to keep better track of his mom, apparently. Because I just found out, I looked this up right before we started, the next Visor 1 book, I believe, is not until book 30.
What?
That's the reunion.
Wow.
Yes, book 30 is the next Visor 1 book. We're on book 15. That's book 30. That's 15 more books, bro, until we get any more Visor 1 goodness.
Hey, we really needed to, play out those Helmicron plot lines before we could get back to this.
Apparently. So knowing that, I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a little bit more development in that area. But no, what I was going to say is that I can't believe at first how much you thought I was disappointed by this book, because I genuinely agree with absolutely everything you said. I think this is a good book. It's a good book. I deem it even somewhat important to the canon of the series, since we get a lot more character development, particularly between Marco and even Tobias gets a lot of character development. And I feel like he's becoming a much more well-rounded character now that he's more involved in the action. He's showing a lot more personality. Rachel is finally becoming the psychopath that we will know her as throughout the rest of the series. She is all about battles and fighting in this book. That's all of her. That's her solution for everything is violence. She's definitely transforming into the iconic Rachel. And it's a fun book. I mean, I had a good time reading it. The Dolphin Rodeo thing is hilarious. It's an instant classic. It's everything an Animorphs book probably should be. And it's slightly better than filler. So for that reason, I'm actually sitting exactly where you're sitting, my bro, and I'm going to give it 4 doggy paddling Hork-Bajir.
Out of 5.
Yes, out of a possible 5 doggy paddling Hork-Bajir. So we didn't come off too different.
You really played it up like you were like, you didn't like this book, you hated this book. Like you were playing that up a little bit.
That's because just coming off of it where I was expecting, I was like, I think this is the book where Marco like finally gets to talk to his mom without the Yeerk in there, and not getting that, and just like being like, nope. It's like they were dangling Visor 1 on a string in front of us, and then they just pulled it away, and they're like, no, 15 more books.
No, I thought it'd be way too early for that interaction, but I agree. Yeah, maybe I did expect a little more. But I do think this is kind of a quintessential Animorphs book, just in the sense that it hits all the points an Animorphs book should. It may have not have like blown me away, but it really covered the bases, and I think it did them well, just not like amazingly.
I feel as though it is, we're starting to repeat ourselves a little bit here in some of the tropes, especially, in the investigative part here where they're showing up at locations and immediately being discovered by human controllers, and then they're chased, and then everyone winds up completing whatever task it was they came to do. We've seen some of this stuff before.
We've seen it straight from book 1. That's the plot of the Gardens in book 1.
Oh, yeah, essentially. And, as long as they keep finding more and more original ways to do that, I'll be okay with it. But if we keep repeating the same thing over and over again, I think I'm going to tire of it pretty quickly. Especially if it's always human controllers are conveniently at this location that they need to infiltrate, and Visitor 3 is going to be showing up round the clock.
It has surprised me that pretty much every single book has had Visitor 3 at the end. It's like we don't... I think it's like a Darth Vader scenario. It's like they think that he's such an iconic villain and such an antagonist. They're afraid to write a book where they're just dealing with Yeerks in general. Like, it's got to be Visitor 3. And I know they're going to grow out of that because we have books coming up within 1 or 2 books where barely anyone is involved except, like some random Yeerk. Visitor, like talking about Cassie's number 19 departure. That's Cassie and one single Yeerk in the woods for an entire book. No other tropes, no scouting mission, no anything. It's just her trapped in the woods with a Yeerk.
It sounds like a good time. Weekend at Cassie's.
It throws the conventions completely out the window. Visitor 3 never shows up. Fight off a jaguar. I mean, it's just crazy. So yeah, I think they feel you on that. I think the authors probably feel very similar to you in that they're like, okay, we're starting to repeat ourselves. How can we really mix it up? And I think they really mix it up in the next few books. Granted, the next book, The Warning, I've never read, so I don't know.
I was going to point out the next book, number 16, The Warning, with Jake turning into a rhino on the cover. I think this is probably a book I read once in my youth and never again. I don't really recall what it's about. I'm psyched to finally get Rhinomorph, though.
Yeah, I've never read the book because I always wondered when I read the David trilogy. It's like, wait, when did everybody get Rhinomorphs? So I'm excited to read that book for this, just to get that Rhinomorph.
It's one that I constantly wonder why they don't use it more. I thought it would be super overpowered. So
Well, it's because they're like practically blind. Every time they describe them, they're super blind. Makes a lot of sense. Anyway, that's our review of book number 15, The Escape.
Gosh, I cannot believe we've done over 15 episodes so far.
Yeah, that's crazy. And we've got a good 40 more to do.
Yeah, cannot wait.
Yep.
Especially for the books that I haven't read yet. Like, now we're getting into this, like, less familiar territory to me. And it's becoming a lot more fun.
After book 23, I'm going to start pointing out the books that I have read, not the books that I haven't.
Yeah, it'll be like, oh, yeah, I have read this one before.
Yeah.
Hey. All the plot essential ones, basically. Filler ones, we skipped them.
Yeah, I literally went from, like, book 24, 25 to 41, and then the next one I read after that was, like, 51. I missed quite a few.
Wow. Yeah. It'll be a good time. We promise you. Good times ahead on Thoughtspeak.
Oh, that's not true. I also read the Super Rachel Crayak Return and Return of David book. And a couple others.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway. So let's go to trivia. You want to go to trivia?
Trivia. Let's do it.
There are some fun facts about the gardens that normal visitors don't usually get to hear. Don't worry, though. Your guides know all of the secrets this park has to offer, and they're dying to tell them to you.
Okay, it's trivia time. This is trivia, provided by Seropedia.
A Thoughtspeak subsidiary.
This is the second book in which all 6 of the Animorphs acquire the same new morph.
Oh.
Right after the Unknown with the horses. Who knows? And there's this big one here. This marks the first book where the Animorphs begin to talk to Visitor 3 and the other Yeerks directly. Prior to this, X had always acted as their spokesperson in case they said or did something that would give away their non-Andalite natures. But here, Rachel directly addresses Visitor 3 when he attempts to eat Axe while in Snake Morph. Marco also speaks to him, but given that he spoke as he was punching Visitor 3's snake form, the visitor may have been unconscious before he registered what Marco was saying to him. Cassie has spoken before, though only briefly.
Yeah.
This is the book when the walls come down and they decide to take the risk of speaking directly. Oh, So we have that to look forward to.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Spoilers, Ceropedia.
I'm looking forward to character development between Visitor 3 and the Animorphs proper, like them speaking back and forth.
Oh yeah, you know what? That's true. I would actually really like a little bit of something. You know, like sometimes they these series that run for long periods of time will do the classic episode type where the good guys have to team up with the bad guys to do some arbitrary task. Obviously, the Andalite Chronicles use that plot device.
So does some other books. So maybe don't get too excited about that.
Well, I can't wait to see the Marco teaming up with Visitor 3 episode.
I mean, it is kind of disappointing to me that we never got a book from Visitor 3's perspective on how he sees the Andalite Bandits. I think that's a perspective I actually would have wanted to be a part of the series.
No, that should have been Visitor 2 or Aileron Chronicles or
something.
The Visitor Chronicles.
Because yeah, I mean, the way his relationship with the Animorphs, I think he's a little better than a cookie cutter villain. I mean, he has a lot of the tropes of the big maniacal antagonist and like old school villain movies.
All they'd have to do is do one book from his perspective with his internal monologuing and just show him to be crazy as hell and paranoid beyond belief and just terrified of failing.
Yeah, just like insane rationalizations for doing crazy things and just his mind warping whenever he thinks of the Animorphs and seeing them as like rivals and really building them up. Like, oh, I must be fighting these warriors who are princes, every single one of them, and, terrified of what they're doing.
Yeah, that's like all he's doing. As he's failing constantly across the board and just becoming more and more crazy, he's building up his enemies to be like these elite Andalite tacticians.
He's going through like military records in the Andalite fleet. Like, oh, I bet this one is this guy. He's got a service record as long as my arm, and that's probably he's like got this crazy like psycho wall of Andalite newspaper clippings and all these strings, piecing it together, trying to figure out who the Andalite bandits are. This wall of crazy.
Right. There's one last trivia thing here. It's just that the Lyran homeworld is referred to as Lyran in this book, but in book number 18, The Decision, it is actually called Lyra. So they changed that. And I thought that was kind of weird too as I was reading it. I kind of glossed over that part where they mentioned something about, back on Lyran. And I thought, the planet is actually called Lyran? I thought it'd be called Lyra.
How weird is that we get an actual name at some point in the series for Lyra, but yet the Hork-Bajir home planet, the Andalite home planet, and the Yeerk home planet never get names.
Right, I know. Isn't that weird? It's just because that's how they were introduced. It's how they were first introduced, and I don't know. I don't know why they never decided to go back and just call it like Euroka or something.
Andalacia. Maybe that's more personal. Like, to speak offhandedly about the Andalite homeworld, maybe that makes it more familiar than to actually give it a technical name. I don't know.
Well, and maybe for something like the Andalite homeworld, maybe whenever an Andalite thought speaks the sentence that contains the Andalite homeworld, what they're actually saying in their Andalite language
is the name
that's not Thoughtspeak. Yeah, would be the proper word for Andalite homeworld.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Ol Klaatu Narata Victu.
Oh, nice, Klaatu. I like how you named it off of the Day the Earth Stood Still enemy.
I'm sorry. I was making a Evil Dead reference, an Army of Darkness reference.
Oh, nice. You made a double reference. Good job. Well, that's all pretty interesting trivia. Not bad. Good find this week.
So yeah, that is the trivia for the escape, and that is actually all I have for you, my good, gentle sir.
And this would be the part where we would move into comments and emails. But, unfortunately, we have not released our last episode, The Unknown, at this point of recording. We're kind of recording a little early, because Mitch decided that he wanted to see what's on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, and he's not going to be with us for the next 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, we say that at the time of recording, I will be gone for 2 weeks, but the intention here is that this episode comes out maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks from now, and then we never even skip a beat, and my honeymoon doesn't have to affect the flow of the podcast. That's what we're hoping. We'll see.
Yeah, so you should
gotta get The Unknown released.
So when you listen to this, hopefully a week from when you're listening, we'll have another new episode. But we're recording this super early, and I'm just going to edit it sometime next week. So that's the plan, dear listeners. But because of that...
The secret life of podcasters.
Yeah, but unfortunately that means we don't have any comments or reviews new yet. But you guys are still chiming in about the Andalite Chronicles, so keep talking. I love how you guys are reacting to that episode. I'm glad it came out all right.
Yeah, we love all matter of chat coming our way.
Yep. So I think that's it. I don't think we have another section to talk about. So that's the episode.
Join us next time for number 16, The Warning. It should be a good one.
I am really excited for that. Any book that I haven't read before, super pumped. So
super pumped.
Thank you for listening. We do hope you check out our website, www.thoughtspeakcast.com. You can email us at thoughtspeakcast@gmail.com. Check us out on Twitter @morphcast. And you can also send us comments on Reddit. We post there every week. Whenever we release a new episode, we'll post on Reddit, and we both jump on there and generally talk to people and chat back and forth with them. So,
reddit.com/r/Animorphs.
Exactly.
See you there.
And also, we have a Facebook. Go there, like it, do whatever you can.
Oh, join us on Facebook. We post there first, honestly. If you want to know when the episode's going to be out, the first place you should go is our Facebook page.
Yeah, that and Twitter. Whenever you post on the Facebook page, I'll usually update Twitter too, like saying we just recorded or something like that. So those are the two that are the most reliant to figure out what our schedule is and if we're being held up for some reason or whatnot. So,
I would totally be down for posting to the Facebook first and then waiting an hour to post to Reddit. So people will only know when the episode's ready to go if they come and check our Facebook.
That way the true fans can get on board. And I think actually at this point I have more Twitter followers on our Twitter than we do have Facebook likes.
Really? We've got 60 some, I think, on Facebook.
Tell me, Mitch, how many times has the author of the series contacted you on Facebook? Because I've been contacted by both authors on Twitter. So, just throwing that out there.
Oh, is it a competition because you run the Twitter and I run the Facebook?
It is, and I'm winning.
Lame. That's because Grant and Applegate don't Facebook.
You don't know that. You're just throwing out wild, baseless assumptions right now. You have no idea.
They know nothing of the technology.
They probably use them all the time. Anyway, so also, can't stress it enough. I know we harp on about this. iTunes reviews. We need more of them. We want to be featured. We want more people to find out about the podcast. The only way we can do that is if you jump on iTunes for 2 seconds and hit one of those little star ratings. The more ratings we have, the better. It takes 5 seconds to do. If you want to take...
If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes already, you might as well just go into the little tab and write the little review.
You want to take 10 seconds and write, good job, guys, I'm a listener, and write a review for that.
You got me.
I mean, that's incredibly helpful.
You've acquired me.
Yeah, and we will shout out and praise your name to the heavens if we see you come in there with a review. So jump on there, guys. Leave us a review. I know every podcast in the entire world asks for iTunes reviews, but we're better than them, and we're trying to reboot the Animorphs franchise. Surely you can get on board with that. So if you would like that as well, tell us by giving us a star rating or leaving a review on iTunes.
Hashtag bringing it back.
So yeah, that's our episode. Join us next week, as we said, for The Warning. Episode number 17? Book number 16?
Ooh, don't guess at the episode number. Let's stick with the book number. I don't know.
Episode 34?
Episode 37.
37. Anyway, so yeah, we appreciate you listening and hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next week.
Peace out, y'all. My name's Mitchell.
And my name's Coleman. Have a good one, everybody.
On behalf of everyone here at the Gardens, we hope you've enjoyed your stay and welcome you to come and see us again soon. Or, as they say on the Serengeti, Tafadali emtu, kupata jambo hili nje ya kichwa yangu.